Let me paint the scene for you, Justin. You have $180 million. How are you going to spend it?
Workflow automation software.
So you saw the news about n8n's enormous fundraise?
How'd you guess? I did. Yeah, they're in Series C already. It feels like they're building up the bank account quickly to take on a lot more. But yeah, I did see. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, at a $2.5 billion valuation, I'm not surprised. I mean, I talked to Jan a couple of years ago, probably at this point, when n8n was not so in the AI agent game and having AI embedded so deeply into the product, and it was just a less mature product, obviously, than it is now. But because of their structure, since you can put it on your own hardware and there's slightly different licensing that we both have feelings about, I think that's what is propelling them really to be a serious competitor against Zapier and Make.
Yeah, and we have to love all of our children, but if I did have to choose a favorite, it would be n8n. So this news made me very happy because it's the one that we at this point recommend the most. I mean, every use case is different, but by and large, I love using n8n, and so I was really happy to see this because to me the big thing is I feel like everyone else in the automation space is taking their legacy software and trying to play catch up with AI and work backwards from what they currently have to try to make it work. Whereas n8n, partly because they're newer as a company, but I think partly because they understood how people need to integrate AI into workflows sooner, everything from the way that you build it with no code to the ability to go really deep with code if you need to is really impressive. And that's part of why we love using it ourselves, not to mention all the other cool features it has, and it's more reliable and handles massive amounts of things that you throw at it, like random data syncing a lot better than maybe others do. But as a implementer of this stuff, like, we love using it too.
That was, one of the points there was one of my first aha moments with n8n, when you have that little toggle where you can just see the code or not see the code. And it's like, man, this makes a lot of sense, right? Because the technical teams are where a lot of the budgets get unlocked. And technical teams are not going to use some UI to drag and drop things. They're just not, right? They need code level access and to be able to export the scenarios as full JSON, which is super nice, and to be able to turn on and off the code so you can really see what's going on or add something really niche for whatever custom thing you're integrating with. I just think it's a very flexible tech team first automation platform, as opposed to going from the no code side.
It's trying to be something for everyone, and we want to make this work for someone in accounting and sales and operations. Yeah.
So I'm just going to read a couple of the firms that they raised this $180 million from, right? You got Accel, you got Sequoia on there, and NVIDIA directly, right?
I mean, NVIDIA is investing in everyone, and I don't count that.
I mean, at this point
anymore, but no, I hear you.
Yeah, it's just awesome to see a European company land such a big chunk of capital and continue to be a serious contender, and I think an innovator in the industry that we're in right now.
So, given the current state of the union on all the upstarts, the Lindys and the Relays, the call it less legacy, more technically advanced folks like the n8n's, and then the call it legacy automation platforms that historically have catered to small use cases like the Zapiers and the Makes maybe somewhere in the middle of n8n and Zapier, but alas, question stands of, given those different segments, do you think these will converge on a really specific core few, or do you think it's going to be a battle for the next few years still of workflow automation software? And
I think it's going to be a battle for the next few years because all of them are so well funded, right? The Lindy, the Relay, the Gumloops have a really fundamentally different structure that they are attacking this type of problem on. I would call it a workflow problem, right? How do people, operate in their daily work? Those companies, it's particularly Gumloop, right? I'd say probably Gumloop, then Lindy, then Relay, focus on AI first, right? Gumloop is so heavily AI oriented, whereas n8n, I think, straddles the line really elegantly between allowing you to do very AI agentic oriented things and also tried and true automation, deterministic things too. So I think the next couple of years, it's going to be a toss-up. People are going to dig their feet in and call their platform the best platform for whatever reason, just because they've used it for the last 5-7 years. But I think N8N has a really unique spot because mid-market to enterprise companies can run it on their own hardware, which is really important for a lot of mid-market and enterprise companies. And it doesn't feel like you're watered down, or it doesn't feel like a watered down UI designed for no coders. Right, you still have the full, robust power of code, but running on your own hardware, and a nice UI if you want it to make it more accessible to less technical people on the team.
Yeah, and I think that they've accepted what workflow automation software needs to be in terms of like functionality and UX and design of it. Like if a workflow builder is very non-technical and they need real hand-holding, they still will get lost in Zapier until they build their own Zaps for a few weeks or a few months. And a developer in Zapier is, very quickly going to run out of legroom for what they actually need to do and control and whatnot. And then the opposite, N8N, if you have very low technical skills, you're probably never really going to click with N8N. And if you do have high technical skills, you've got way more legroom. I don't know why I'm using legroom as an analogy, but you've got way more legroom to stretch out those long legs with what you need to do.
It's an airport.
Yeah.
An airplane, taking flight, launching automations. I don't know. I'm with you. It was.
And I think N8N fundamentally understands like you need more complexity and abilities in these tools to really make them effective, which is where I think, sub-zaps in Zapier, people are still trying to understand like, okay, how do I trigger this stuff between different flows and how can I reuse a lot of what I've done? The way N8N is set up, like, we at least use it this way where the sub-flow stuff is very obvious and you're triggering different flows from other flows. And it's way that it's built AI into the mix. Because, at the end of the day, AI right now, the way that it works generally for more than single-player use cases in ChatGPT and Claude, when you're multiplayer as a business, the way AI works is it really slots into an existing, 30-step workflow. Some of that is done by humans, some of it can be automated, and AI is just a step in. And whether that step calls an agent and it's doing a bunch of fancy stuff, or that step calls an LLM prompt where it's just analyzing something.
Yeah,
AI is just kind of a step in a workflow, series of workflow steps. And then they has kind of built their product around that understanding more so than others have. So all this is to say, I guess I'm fanning out at this point, but I'm happy to see this because they already seem to have a better fundamental understanding of what the software needs to be. And so now they just get to accelerate that.
In the headline I saw, at least, used your word of the week a couple of weeks ago, orchestration.
Yeah,
I think they're going to keep hounding that term, and that term I think is at least going to be much more defined than some of the other amorphous terms that we've seen in the industry. So the orchestration platform N8N has just a ton more cash now. So we'll see what the next year holds for them.
Speaking of spending cash, that's probably a segue that'll shift us gears into browsers, which we've talked about a fair amount. But this week, obviously, was a big one with OpenAI releasing ChatGPT, or Atlas by ChatGPT by OpenAI. But when you first started up, their branding is this is Atlas by ChatGPT. So you can tell that they're gearing towards like a consumer market framing. This is not like everyone in the company will install this and everyone's browsers are linked up with AI agents and stuff like that. It's very much, I would say, a consumer play, and the branding indicates that. But ChatGPT released their own browser this week. It is built on Chromium, just like a lot of browsers are, so it's not truly them building browser from scratch. I would call it they have skinned Chrome and added in some ChatGPT functionality. But I spent a fair amount of time with it the evening after it came out, and I will say I'm sticking with Arc, and I am not that impressed. But I think it goes back to how people navigate the internet is different than how AI needs to work, and they're trying to converge those two, just like a lot of browsers are. And Comet with by Perplexity, and who am I missing? There's another big AI browser.
Those are the two that I'm aware of, at least. But
Anyway.
Were there any features in Atlas? I haven't tried it personally. I was a little skittish to actually put it on my machine based on the security reviews that I saw. But were there any features that you used that you actually liked? Maybe that Arc or Daya could actually add at some point? Or do you feel like it was just a version 1 and, mass market consumers might think it's cool, but it's not a professional tool?
First off, Daya is the other one I was thinking of. Thank you. You just said it. That's the other AI-based browser. So to answer your question, no, I don't think there was no features where I was impressed by, candidly. Like I find a lot of the use cases are either it's like most demos from marketing teams. Their agentic demo for this, again, like always, was here's how an agent can take over your browser and book your travel for you. It's like people aren't traveling that much that they like this is a core daily use case. So I used all the features. There is nothing unique about it that makes it like it doesn't have themes. It doesn't have profiles. It doesn't load extensions. And I get why, because of security concerns, which we'll talk about. But it doesn't have any of that like core tertiary features that you want in a browser. Outside of it being a browser, you want to be able to either maybe log into different profiles or you want to have extensions that help you out. So for core features as a browser, it's not even at like the table stakes, so to speak. And then the AI part of it really is twofold. One is it's ChatGPT baked into your browsing experience, where summarize this page or find other articles about this or distill, what you know about me, how I would apply this recipe to 5 people instead of 6, whatever. Like the page says, recipe for 6.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. You could ask questions of it, but to me, it's like it still feels just faster to do it. And then work cases, it doesn't have all the context because it's just a browser. So if you're using the ChatGPT within there to say like, oh, I got these 4 emails and these 3 spreadsheets, and I need to summarize for an status update or something, like it can't go do all of that with the ChatGPT built into the browser. So that core use case, not fun. It's the same reason I didn't stick with Daya either. I'm like, I can't quickly find the use cases that I can envision using this for. And then the other big part of Atlas, though, is it can take over your browser. And so ChatGPT's or OpenAI's agentic abilities, or what they refer to as agents, this is where the term agents has become too watered down. But when they talk about agents in their product, what they mean is we take over in a browser for you and we'll navigate and we'll figure out what you've asked me to do and I'll go take the actions in a browser. So that side of it, I, again, used a few different use cases that isn't, I need to book a flight from here to Ohio tomorrow. Like, it was more so, I need you to open up my email and there's a DocuSign in there and I need you to review it first before I sign it and summarize any flags. Like, I gave it that use case.
Yeah.
It couldn't scroll because of DocuSign's terrible UX, but it lost itself on like scrolling and analyzing it. So it gave up 60 seconds in. It did understand, it did open my email. It did find the first DocuSign that it, like in the inbox, and it did open it. But once it got into DocuSign, it failed. It was like, do you want to take over?
So you're like, Atlas, do this thing. And now you're just like watching to make sure that it does it right.
Yeah. And in these cases, I watched it. So I won't comment on speed because, again, I think where they could help themselves in UX is explain to people, like, we're going to take our time to go do this. So you can go do something else and come back if you want.
Yeah,
but alas, I keep using the word alas today. I don't know why, but alas, I watched it do it, and it was just like stumbled through, and I could tell right before it popped up with the do you want to take over? You could see the cursor moving around, and it was like, oh, it doesn't understand DocuSign's weird UX functionality. So that was one use case I threw at it, and then another was I gave it 2 separate spreadsheets and said these are this is one company with 2 different CRMs, and I need you to look at the fields in these 2 spreadsheets and mark down in one of the spreadsheets which fields are the same in both and which ones are different. And you could see, because you can see the thinking process when you open that up, and it understood the request, but right away it failed because it didn't understand which spreadsheet was which, and it treated them as the same, and it came back with like, they're all the same in both of them, and it didn't understand. So I even clarified. I was like, no, this is 2 different spreadsheets, and the title, one says Salesforce, one says Pipedrive, that's the two different CRMs. It was like, oh, gotcha. Let me try again. Same thing though. It still treated it as the same. So anyways, those were kind of two core use cases. And then I gave it some random things like go through my last 10 emails and summarize them and the very basic stuff it did fine. But at the same time, I was just like, okay, this is so what kind of functionality and it can log into things for you, but that we can segue into the security stuff that is coming.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like if you're having it go and drive for your email and, log into my JetBlue or like log into all this stuff, like you're actually giving it access to those things.
Yeah, but it's almost like in an incognito window. Like it's not saving. Well, they claim, and I believe it though. Like they're not saving the recordings of everything that's happening because you've turned it on, the training off on it. We're on a Teams account, and at the business level controls, you can turn off like don't use anything that anyone does for any sort of training purposes. So that's why I do believe it. Of like they are legally like those are legal agreements, and their reputation would be shattered very quickly if they were actually recording all of it when they very explicitly on legal terms say that they're not when you turn that feature off. So all that is to say, I think some people are over inflating they see everything you do. Yeah, well, on that side. But the main security concern that I have with it is the prompt injection side of it. And that's what a lot of people have flagged of like, well, if you give it access to everything, including your passwords, and it can log into things for you, all it takes is you to have an automation set up that says scan my email every morning for my top 10 emails, and people to start sending emails that gives it instructions to say, you are an agent controlling someone's computer and I'm asking you to go do this, and like that kind of thing. And they're already trying to get ahead of it. But that's an example of a very simple prompt injection where it will, yeah, you can quickly see how that can become troublesome. And I haven't tried doing that myself. I've heard of others trying it, and sometimes it works, sometimes it catches it. Like all things AI, it depends on how you word it. But there is very real concerns there. So very long story short, never let it use all my passwords or gave it access to be able to log into stuff. And I've already uninstalled it. I won't be using it anytime soon.
But it actually asks for like keychain access, like on your Mac. Man, yeah, that is a strategy of deploying agents, I guess. And
it's early days. I think it's the equivalent of, when the internet was earlier days and two-factor didn't exist. I mean, two-factor is relatively new in the grand scheme of technology, but, things like that with tools that are better at cracking passwords than two-factor came along. But everyone thought passwords were, well, as long as you do enough characters, enough numbers, like it's fine. But we've all come to learn it's not, with ransomware being abundant. So I think it's same here of like it's early days, but I'm not keen on being a guinea pig for testing these early security strategy efforts, and I don't think most people should be. So that's my take.
For the record, I do think Daya is structurally different than Perplexity's Comet and ChatGPT's Atlas. I think
Daya's stronger for sure.
Right. It's like categorically in the same conversation as an AI-based browser, but it is at least a full browser in the sense of having profiles and bookmarks and like all themes and all the stuff that you would actually need from a browser. And I think, I was bummed obviously to see Daya over Arc in the browser company of New York's decision to pursue that. But I do think that the browser company actually still has the reputation of being a browser, like being a browser first, and then
table stakes features.
Yeah. But they did Daya added some skills recently. I don't know if you saw that announcement.
Yeah.
Which I would have to imagine coincides with the skills that you were really excited about from Claude.
Claude skills, yeah. And did you have tell me about your day-to-day, your personal LLM usage. Are you OpenAI only, Claude only, a mix?
I am not only. I almost all day have 3 windows open for ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini.
Yeah.
Those are the 3 that I use. If I'm doing illustrations or graphics, I'll primarily use Gemini. But if I'm doing code, I'll go through all of them and say, fix this, generate this, whatever, and just go back and forth. And that seems to be really effective. And Claude tends to be my go-to, at least initially on the first pass, for content. So drafting something. And then ChatGPT is, a glorified Google search.
Yeah, same. Minus Gemini. I have a set of tests that I run every new model through to see how it performs generally, but day to day I use Claude and OpenAI or ChatGPT for different use cases, and partly just to stay on top of like how are these different models performing. But I have found since Sonnet 4.5 came out, I've been using Claude more and more. I found its content generation has always been better than ChatGPT. Like it's always sounded more like a human.
Yeah.
But their reasoning skills have become, like with extended thinking turned on, I would argue Sonnet 4.5 with extended thinking versus GPT-5 with extended thinking is like night and day.
Really?
But the Sonnet 4.5 has only been released in the last few weeks. Like even 2 months ago, GPT felt stronger, but I think partly because the way it generates content, GPT-5 is still too sparse. So all this is to say I've been using Claude more and more, and Claude came out with... everyone's kind of mixing terms with each other. Agent doesn't really mean anything anymore. Skills doesn't really mean anything anymore because everyone has their own version of skills. But Claude's is impressive, I would say. It functions a lot like projects do in Claude and ChatGPT. But what's different is you're not sharing this project as this is a single use case project and we've given it all this context. You are giving a skill, a bunch of context that you would use over the course of many different projects or chats. So
Okay.
it's not, I think how a lot of people use projects and customize even a model for different use cases is in projects you're saying, this is this project and I'm giving you context about it's a marketing effort or it's a client project or whatever it might be. You are giving a context about that project and the things that you need. So some of those might be skills, some of that might be context of that, that project that you're working on. Skills instead, you're just giving it skills and you're generalizing it to say, normally when we do data architecture analysis or we do financial P&L analysis or whatever it might be, this is how we think, quote unquote, think about it and what general inputs will be involved, what general outputs should be happening, what they should look like and whatnot, how to analyze things as in telling it how to reason through things. And so you can give it those skills and they turn into these toggles where in different chats you can turn different skills on and off. So it really comes down to, it has that flexibility of like how you want to structure your skills. If you want to get really granular of like, I want a skill for financial modeling, best and worst case scenarios, but I want a different skill for financial modeling based on our revenue, our projection of, revenue and breakdown of it and whatnot. Like if you want to get granular and those are two different skills, you can do that. Or if you want more of any financial task, this is generally how we go about it and have a skill for that. So it gives you that flexibility when you're in a chat of like, well, this chat, I need general financial skills. Or if you're getting really granular, you can get down to that level. And it's working quite well. So you can give it, different files. Mainly it's markdown files, like it's meant to be text instructions.
Yeah.
And the irony is I've been using Claude to generate its own, like, I want to build a skill for XYZ.
I was just about to ask you, what are the top skills that you've, started using?
We do a ton of data analysis and mapping. So I built, that was some of the first kind of core use cases that I built. And it's been working great at that. I took a couple that because we use Notion as a team, so took a couple that we use SOPs essentially and said, this is an SOP on how we do XYZ in the company, turn this into a skill. And so then I would stress test it against, here's the inputs for that this SOP requires to do whatever the outputs are for it. And then you turn on those skills and you could feel that it worked better because of that.
Solid.
Yeah. So overall, it's one of those things where, back to what I keep harping on, like the single player versus multiplayer use cases, I think Claude skills is really, it's Claude recognizing, I think, what people are recognizing in general about AI of like the technology itself is still progressing quickly, but not quite there in terms of you just drop it into any workflow and it's doing 10 people's different parts of a task or workflow in the company for them. But individuals working one-on-one with a chat can be very effective. And so I think skills is just an example of like they're playing to what people are actually requesting, which is when I'm working one-on-one with the chat, I want to accelerate how I go about certain different tasks, and skills unlocks that.
Yeah. you can't access skills through N8N, for example, at least not now.
No, it's more of a product feature than it is like an underlying
API,
object. But it is cool.
maybe one day.
But it also will accelerate people using AI, and I think more and more people are using AI for slop. Well, this is the last thing I think you want to cover.
Yeah, the AI slop. It's a problem right now. I was at a party a couple of weeks ago, and I overheard two people talking about, oh, have you seen the talking babies? Have you seen the talking dogs? It's just so cute. I love it. And I'm like, oh no, it's happening.
Yeah.
You shouldn't love those things. Like that's like really damaging and really bad
to your
on a lot of levels. Yeah. So I was watching a famous YouTuber about AI slop destroying the internet, and how sort of the recursive reference searching aspect that AI does, and then content creation can sort of feed this loop. So bear with me as I explain this.
Okay.
Right. So if you go through and you ask Claude or ChatGPT to create a research report for you about the solar system. How many planets do we have on the solar system, in our solar system? And it does all this research, and it finds all these references about the 9 planets that we have in our solar system, because for a large part of the internet, there were 9 planets. But now, according to science, there are only 8.
Pluto's a government op.
Yeah, right. But for whatever reason, somebody published incorrect information that there were 11. And because you're a savvy automator, this piece of content went through your automations and immediately got published to YouTube, your blog, and a bunch of other things. And now there is a published piece of content on the internet that says there's 11 planets for whatever reason. Now, when other AIs go through and they build research reports on how many planets are there in the solar system, they go through and they find this reference that was AI generated that said that there were 11 planets. And now that person who requested that research report now has a cited source that says that there's 11 planets. And now you can see the cycle continue to spiral out of control, right? And there's this slight tweaking as you go through and publish and have these automations publish content without a real human check. And slowly over time, or maybe really quickly as we accelerate into this singularity or whatever it is, all of this information continues to get slightly more and more and more inaccurate, because AI is publishing inaccurate content, and then it is referencing the inaccurate content in its new citations.
Yeah.
Deep breath. So that's AI slop in this context, where like we're slowly degrading the quality of our own internet in like the research. Yeah, like factual information becomes grayer and grayer, as if it wasn't already super gray. But that's like the bad side of the cute dog and baby talking videos, right? It's like this just degradation of truth that I feel like is important to mention. We should acknowledge that, right? That this is,
Well, and you're bringing this up because of the Kurzgast video, I think, which we've both seen, and that we'll link it in the show notes. And it's like all things Kurzgast. It's Kurzgast. Anyways, I know sprechen Deutsch. Like all things
in a nutshell,
it's great, and the video is a good one to watch. The interesting thing too is like the difference between slop that we all know is slop, like the cute dogs and like I've got Sora. I got access to Sora on day one, and I've opened it all of 5 times for 5 minutes at a time just to see like what's going on over there. And you probably saw in the news, like Martin Luther King's family had to ask that he not be shown in there, his likeness not be used to create these fake speeches that people are doing. Like there's just this absolute slop that is like mindless things that humans create too. That's why often people refer to TikTok as slop. But I found it interesting. Jeremy Gaffon, who years ago, him and I crossed paths when we were both at MetaLab Tiny area, and he put a good he always has a good analysis of the market, but his recent one on AI, this stood out to me. Of the reason, I'll quote what he said: The reason we're so upset about Slop is because it's obvious we're all going to love consuming it in 2 to 3 years. It's not going to be Slop for long. And I think there's something to that of like, it's getting more and more realistic and people are just more and more invested in just scrolling through social media. They don't really give a damn where it came from or even what it is. And so I think that part of the Slop is like, that seems inevitable, even though I don't love it. And I think most people at the end of the day don't love it. But we know that it's human nature that, yeah, we'll just watch Slop. But on the flip side, what you're talking about is, I think, more related to the dead internet theory, which I'm sure you've seen.
Yes, I have seen the dead internet theory, and I think it is one worth talking about here in the couple of minutes we have left.
Well, and the dead internet theory, to summarize for those who haven't heard it, is some call it a conspiracy theory. Like, I think that there's some who take it way too seriously. Yeah. I think we are approaching, though, where it's like it becomes more and more true. But the dead internet theory overall suggests that much of the internet, particularly social media, is no longer driven by real human activity, but bots and AI-generated content and automated accounts. And so there's this theory that the conspiracy theorists think already 100% of the internet is, call it, dead, where it's not humans generating any content anymore. But I would say that we're accelerating quickly to, 50% to 60 to 70 to 80. Like, if things continue at this pace with what you're talking about, where someone generates a report, they put that out, it's got one fact off, the next person generates a report, uses that one wrong fact, it creates 2 new wrong facts. Like, it's a network that multiplies, and the speed at which people can do it, it's obviously accelerating quickly. So all this is to say, I don't know that we have a takeaway here like the other topics that we had. It's more so State of the Union on what Slop means for the internet.
Just be aware of it, I guess, is the real takeaway, and check your sources, and like, don't set up a automated, AI content pipeline that just is pumping out wrong things. I mean, I guess that's what it is. Put the human in the loop there, like, check this stuff, because it can have I think it's gonna end up having a lot larger ripple effects than any single contributor is really intending. And I think that's just a consequence of the world we live in right now.
It is, as we all adjust. Speaking of adjusting, I'm going to go start adjusting to the end of my day because it is Friday and I have a lot to catch up on, as I imagine you do too. So chat next time.
Yeah, I'll see you soon.
Okay, ciao.